Welcome to TALRadio. You are now going to listen to Mentor Loop, our special series on career growth by Roopa Sunku, Chief Evangelist at TAL Career Help. In today's episode of Span of Influence, you will be acquainted with the significance of getting influential in one's career and ways to improve it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Roopa Sunku, and I'm the Chief Evangelist at Touch a Life Foundation with the Career Help. Today, I'm going to talk to you about influence maps or span of control. What is influence? Influence is all about affecting an outcome. It is also motivating a behavior change or an action. It could also be your understanding of the impact you want to have on other people or their perceptions of you. It's about progressing things without forcing them or being pushy. So these would be the definitions of what an influence is. You don't have to be a person of influence to be influential. In fact, the most influential people in life are probably not even aware of the things they have taught us. Kind of going into one of the more popular influence models is the Cohen-Bradford model, which is a model of influence without authority. So we are often enough in many situations not in a position of authority, and we still like to influence our surroundings, be it at home, be it at work, be it in our networks. How do you kind of work through this law of reciprocity, which is the primary influence on the influence model? The model itself states that people expect to get paid back for what they do to the others. When someone helps you, you expect sooner or later that same person will reciprocate in a reasonably equivalent fashion. This gives and take relationship is the exchange that you want to look at as the core principle within this model. It all begins with assuming all are potential allies in the group that you're working to influence. You want to clarify your goals and your priorities with them. You want to be able to diagnose the world of other person, identify the relevant currencies that is engaged, yours as well as theirs, and you then develop relationships to be able to create that ultimate influence through the give and take or the reciprocity. In order to kind of work through the influence model and how do you influence people, I have an acronym called PICKY, P-I-C-K-Y. P stands for people, I for image, C for communication, K for knowledge, and Y for you. Going into the first letter, which is P, become a student of the people and form relationships. And the most important aspect of being able to understand relationships is also equated to 5% of the relationships that you form in an organization helps you influence 30% of the activity within an organization. To be able to start understanding people, you have people who are introverts, who are extroverts, people who are people-oriented and task-oriented. So the DISC model, which is the directive, influencing, and sociability, and the C for calm and confrontation, basically creates that consciousness of the people around you. So again, D is for directive, decisive, dominance, I for influence, S for steadiness or being cautious and focused towards the accurate situation you're working with, and then consciousness of the surroundings will give you a sense of who the people are around you and whom you're working with, and always employ the opposite reaction so that you can create an attraction. And what I mean by that is work on trying to improve your introvertedness with those people working or who are actually extroverts. Meanwhile, if you are a task-oriented people, try to influence the people-oriented people with a combination of task and people associated to it. So knowing your people, understanding what aspect of the person you want to influence and can influence to solidify the relationship is so very, very important. I for image. In this case, if you were to ask your network what your reputation is and what do they say or what do you think they will say, is plain and simply your personal brand, your values, your assets, your influences, and your controls in the system. It takes a long time to build a reputation. And Warren Buffett says it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you will do things differently. And that is super important because a reputation kind of helps you set the bar, makes you competitive, creates a role model for others, opens up doors faster and accelerates trust, and it combats some of the negative influences with the reciprocity that you bring into your image and your personal brand into that influence model or map. The next letter is E, or effective communication in Picky. Communication is also important because you are making sure that you're playing with known surroundings, you're paying attention to the genuineness of the interest and listening to the people. In a relation of trust and reciprocity, it is super important to make sure that you are on the same playing ground and have a baseline or a fundamental connection going between the people that you're working with. Share your vision and develop some accountability. And accountability will improve performance, it encourages ownerships, it builds trust, and develops you as a person. It's very important to express your values because, again, the whole aspect of values, creating integrity, positivity, creativity, transparency, will create that ultimate platform for building those influences and relationships. Also, bring in empathy and sincerity to all of this. Moving on to K, which is knowledge. Demonstrate your expertise or your knowledge. Knowledge is a gift that deserves to be shared with others, and there are a lot of benefits that go along with this. Sharing information enriches and expands what you know. It also creates the most effective way to deepen your knowledge further and honor your message, hone in on your skill, hone in on your artistry, to find those effective ways to communicate with people and be a recipient of the knowledge and share the knowledge and challenge your thinking so that you can bring in an optimal situation to be able to have that go-to person and have that influence established with this. You can develop a lot of the expertise through blogs, leadership posts, publications, magazines, public speaking, events of mentoring and training. These are all avenues to be able to pick up on knowledge. The letter Y in Picky is for you, Y-O-U, which just qualifies and qualitatively initiates that influencer in you. Effective influencers are always curious, authentic, confident, and show humility, very prepared in what situation they've been brought into. Integrity to the right things for the right motive and the right values that's demonstrated through being prepared, being resilient, being connected, and most importantly, being accountable. Open-minded, passionate, decisive, generous, disciplined, and positive to be able to bring that reciprocity within that influence. If there is a give, there is a take, and that is how you can build those relationships, then become an opportunity to influence. How well they reflect in your actions and your daily activities is super important to remember in all of these combinations. So one must be wondering, how do you write down or how do you put together an influence map for yourself? So I will take an example of an organization that I belong to. And within that organization, you will obviously have the leadership, which is the top of the pyramid. So it's your stakeholders and your ultimate leaders who are creating the objectives or the OKRs within an organization and giving the entire organization direction. It could be at the company level, it could be at the organizational level, but stakeholders at the leadership level are driving what you want to achieve. So once you have the objectives and key results that you're driving towards, or the OKRs, as I did mention, you now know what is it that you want to achieve within your own paradigm or your span of influence. In order to be able to get that span of influence defined, you need to prioritize your objectives that you're driving towards. And with the objectives comes, who are the players? Who are the people? Who is your network that you need to work with? So map it out. You also need to look at the influencers within the organization, along with the stakeholders who are defining and kind of owning that piece within a company or an organization. The influencers can be threefold. It could be your own org and influencers within your org. The peers or peer orgs that you're engaged with will be your second entity of influencing. And the third entity of influencing is the customer that is going to receive or utilize your product or services. So you have the stakeholder on the very top, or the leadership. Then you have the influencers within your own organization, within peer organizations, and then customer organizations. And below each of these influencer orgs, you have the doers, or the people who actually can put their skill and transactional activity to completion, to execution. And you have the managers that actually own that business. They could help you be able to bring that message down to the bottom of the org where it is most influential. You need to be able to understand the dynamics of the people in the organization, the doers and the managers, and utilize what you have in terms of knowledge of the organization to determine which relationship and which influencer can help you get your activity accomplished. So take the whole picky model to be able to map your influence network. Draw it out and determine who within this organization are your stakeholders, but who are the people that you can approach and have built a relationship with. And that is important to be able to get that span of influence and map put to test. Go ahead and take projects to be able to determine if they will be able to give you feedback on what your perspective is of those objectives that you're trying to reach, or the relationships that you're building to meet that end goal, or the key objectives or the key results that you want to attain. And lastly, and more importantly, please keep the peers close to heart and make sure that it is all a relationship of reciprocity. If you are getting something from that particular relationship, they should also be able to see the benefit of the relationship. And that is when this whole map of influence will be put to test and will yield results as well. Lastly, I'd like you to think about those influence maps or influence circles that you have created within your own network, within your own ecosystem, and make sure to map and determine and identify who are the significant influencers over the years and who is your current influencer, and has things changed with their position with you, their relationship with you, and where they stay or stand in the organization in contrast to when you both started working together. Make sure that whatever has made these people influential is understood before you use them as stakeholders or peers or influencers within your new map of reaching that ultimate goal. Also, determine what characteristics do each of these people display in terms of your influence map. That is also a way to be able to identify and determine if these folks can help you with any of the new objectives that you're adding into your list or new projects that you're looking to tackle. The other thing to look at is, have you identified the right influencers? And are those people currently the influencers in this particular area that you're approaching? Do they have the expertise? Do they have the influence? And what is their opinion? And why is it that you think that they will be the right influence? Is a very critical question to ask. Also, you want to determine some of these influences are relationship building blocks. So you may start off with them being a doer who has then been moved up to a peer and then an influencer, and maybe ultimately the stakeholder that will be able to provide that knowledge in a particular subject area or project to be able to make that difference to the ultimate goal that you want to achieve. And it is also important to look at all of the influences circles that you have with the outcome for that moment in time or for that effort or that quarterly milestone that you are looking to achieve. So in order for me to close this topic, I'd like to just remind you that the Cohen-Bradford model of influence without authority is a law of reciprocity, and it is to understand people and assume that all potential people around you within your map of influence are allies who have the clarity of the goals and priorities with you to be able to carry out and journey to that ultimate goal of influence. Being able to diagnose the world of all the people around you, make sure that the communication, the currencies, and the relevancy is very precise. Utilize those relationships of all the stakeholders, the peers, the influencers, the doers, and the managers within an organization to be able to influence and get that task to completion. So I hope you have understood the span of influence and how you can utilize your network and your relationships with people, keeping in mind people, image, communication, knowledge, and you in the center of this law of reciprocity to be able to achieve that influence and initiate change or attempt that ultimate goal that you're looking to proceed with. Please join me on future Mentor Loop episodes at Touch a Life Foundation. And if you'd like to enroll as a mentee or a mentor, please do so through touchalife.org/career help and reach out to us, and we will be here to help you. And hope you've enjoyed this podcast on span of influence and influential circles that you create within work. And all the best in your next endeavor. And do let us know how it's going and if we can be of any assistance to you. I hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you so much for listening to me.
You have listened to the Mentor Loop by Roopa Sunku. Hope you love the guidance. Stay tuned to TALRadio for more interesting programs.